Hey everyone, it's me Dan. It's early in the morning today on Saturday, but my daughter's asleep, so it's a good time to do a video. And I'm going to talk today about a book I read called Howard's End by E.M. Forster. This was a book that was written, I think first published in 1910. I've got some notes over here, so I'm going to glance. And there's a foreword by Mary Gordon, who's a professor somewhere. Now, I do recommend that if you read this book, read the foreword first, because getting some cultural context is important in reading a book that's that old. So don't skip the introduction by Mary. It'll make you enjoy the book a little bit more. It's a character-driven story. It revolves around the Schlegel sisters, Margaret and what's her name, Helen. The Wilcoxes, who are rich capitalists, and of course the Basts, who are a poor, kind of a proletariat type of. You expect to see them in the Communist Manifesto type of thing. Educated, not well educated, hungry for something better, but really the working poor. It was written during a cultural transition period, just at the end of the Victorian era, so again 1910 it was published. So it's just before the First World War. There's all those tensions building up, and there's probably not a surprise that you have the Schlegel sisters are of German stock, and the old Wilcoxes are English stock, and the conflict that's there probably symbolic of the conflict, and you actually see it in the book a couple times with the characters talk about the inevitability of war. And if you've read history, history books will tell you that people just thought there was going to be a war. It was destiny. There would be a war between England and Germany, and it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So those elements are in here. And you could look at this book as really this a commentary on this confluence of change, the change from because the Schlegel sisters really are the aristocracy, highly well read and sophisticated, but a little bit out of touch with reality. And the Wilcoxes are the industrialists who have built up the nation and the empire and represent the modern man and very practical. And then, of course, the Basts, which are really like the unwashed, forgotten, left behind, poorly educated, but enough education to know that they are poorly educated type of folks that are hungry for something else, but are really just cut out of everything. The novel itself is pretty slow-paced, especially for a modern reader, because it's a character-driven piece. The plot itself is pretty silly, from my perspective. The problems that people have. You just want to reach into the book sometime and slap them. But I guess I'm more of a modern person, so more of a Wilcoxian industrialist type of mindset that makes me impatient with these types of pieces. So it can be difficult to adjust to that writing pace. The inciting incident in the book, for example, in the story, is such a minor thing, but everybody goes freaking nuts about it. You just want to reach in and go and throttle people. But if you blink, you're going to miss the inciting incident. It's not like a modern novel where they go, ta-dam, the elephant comes in the room, oh, got to do something, It's not that way. It's more like, a hummingbird came into the room and you weren't even looking at it or listening to it, and then all of a sudden things kind of almost sort of happen. That's the pacing of the book. The narrator in books of this time was the overall important character. I mean, if you ever read Charles Dickens, Nathaniel Hawthorne, anybody from writing in that period, for example, Shelley's Frankenstein. The narrator is the main character, and what they do is they interject themselves into the story with these nice little comments on what's happening, these pithy little remarks, or these moral judgments or philosophical thingies. And for modern reader, again, if you're not used to that style, it can drive you nuts. So when you combine that, and I actually kind of like that a lot because I think it's representative. The narrator is representative of the author in a way that you don't get in a modern book. Although I would hesitate to say that the narrator is the author because it is a characterization. But I think you do get to know a little bit more about the author when you read this type of narrative style. But when you combine all that together, the slow pacing, the really trivial Victorian moral problems which cause all this stuff, about halfway through the book, you're going to be going, God, I can't do it. You're going to want to throw it aside. But really a strange thing that happens throughout the book, and I didn't notice it until I finished. I read the climactic little problem scene, and strangely, which really surprised me, I had a emotional response to it, which was fairly strong, and I was like, why? I didn't like reading the book. And what I kind of concluded is that since it's all a character-driven, all this internal dialogue between the characters, is that slowly over time as you read the book, you become invested in those people. And even though they're frustrating to you or drive you nuts, or you get tired of the narrative voice kind of almost lecturing you or being smarter than you or whatever the narrative voice is telling you as you read it, you do become invested. And by the time, even though I still think the final problem, especially in a modern viewpoint, is so trivial, it's not trivial to these characters, and there's a lot of angst and stupid responses to it that ruins lives, and they somehow come out of it at the end changed in both their outlooks, particularly the Schlegel sisters, and their acceptance of people as people, and that causes that emotional response, which is a very valuable and perhaps very much necessary part of any novel. And I think part of that is we're now a television audience and a movie audience, and we expect to see things progress quickly because you got limited time, and so we're trained to like a different style and pace and format of a story than something like Howard's End. But Howard's End, when you go back and you actually take the time to read it and you put aside your own personal cultural training on how stories are told, it does have a reward at the end of it which makes the book worthwhile. So yeah, I do recommend reading it, even though about halfway through I think you're going to go, why am I reading this? Finish the book. Okay? Anyway, so Howard's End, E.M. Forster, written in 1910. It was a difficult but rewarding read, and I think that if you're willing to put in the time, you'll like it too. But if you really want an adventure story and fast-paced stuff, don't go anywhere near it. But like I said, I like these types of books, so I do recommend it. And with all that said, it's about 6:20 in the morning, and I think I will finish my tea and do a little bit of very modern surfing on the internet. So with all that said, I guess I will see you all next time.